The poor boy just escaped and they're like, send him to hell. Hi and welcome back to my booktube channel. My name is Sam and today I'm going to be trying something a little bit different, as you probably tell from the title where it says episode 1. I'm going to try and just do a little mini series on my channel where the main premise is not very imaginative but mainly it's just I want to make a little series where I read trilogies on my shelves because I have so many trilogies on my shelves that I have not read. I have Crazy Rich Asians, I have The Cruel Prince, I have Daughter of Smoke and Bone, I have all these books, trilogies that I just haven't read. And I kind of thought, why not make like a mini series where each episode like a TV show, but each episode I'll read a trilogy and give you my thoughts on them, and they can all be on one playlist and you can just kind of watch through. And maybe even, I was thinking, after maybe 5 of the videos, or maybe after 10, I'll rank them in like a tier list maybe, or something like that, and we can kind of have like a battle of the trilogies or something like that. It's not the most original idea, but I just thought it'd be a little bit of fun, and yeah, hopefully I can keep up with it. But it would be a nice incentive to actually finish the trilogies on my shelves because I'll be able to talk about them with you guys and share my thoughts on them. The first episode, as you probably tell from the title, probably just call it that, as you can tell from the title. But I'm going to be reading A Dark Shade of Magic by V.E.Schwab, or as she goes by in these publications, V.E.Schwab. A Dark Shade of Magic is a fantasy series set in a world where there are 4 parallel universes almost, and each of these universes has a London, and that kind of connects them all. They all have this in common, and we have these characters who can move between Londons, but they're very rare characters, and one of our main characters, Kell, can travel between these different dimensions. Now the only issue is the magic in one of these Londons, called Black London, went absolutely wild and destroyed the entire universe in that London. So they blocked it off, and now we have Grey London, which has no magic. We have Red London that has a little bit of magic left. They're like thriving. They're like the best ones. And then we have White London, which is the closest to Black London, and it's kind of being seeped. The magic is seeping out, and it's very dystopian and horrible, and everyone's killing each other for the slightest drop of magic. But that's kind of the world we're set in, and we have 2 main characters, one called Kell, who's an Antari, who can move between these Londons, and we have another one called Lila, who is kind of like a pickpocket thief, badass, and I love her. But yeah, in this part of the episode, I'm going to be talking about the first book, which I have read. Now, this series is going to work where in the video I will read a book. Every time I finish a book in the trilogy, I'll come back and talk about it, and obviously at the end I'll give you my overall thoughts. But in this first part of the video, I will talk about A Dark Shade of Magic, the first book. So from beyond here, okay, non-spoilery thoughts actually. My non-spoilery thoughts are, I really enjoyed this book. We follow Kell as he is tasked with returning something that he was given and shouldn't exist. That's my non-spoilery plot summary. And we obviously meet him and Lila. They have some hijinks, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a very well-written fantasy, and I really enjoyed it. And it's just a well-written fantasy with a very fast-paced story, and it's just a lot of fun. But yeah, beyond that, the characters are amazing. But yeah, there's going to be spoilers in this video, so please don't watch further if you don't want spoilers. But if you have read the series and you do want to know my thoughts, stick around. But yeah, let's just get into this first book. So, Book 1, A Dark Shade of Magic. This one follows our main character, Kell, who we learn is an Antari who can move between these 4 Londons with blood magic. Now, his kind, these Antari, have a very distinct feature of having one complete black eye, and that's how we tell who they are. Now, initially, when Lila is introduced at the end, it's kind of like one of her eyes is fake, and it's just like immediately, she's an Antari. In the next book, we're going to find out she's an Antari 100%. Maybe as a child, her eye got cut out to hide her or something. I don't know. But that's just something I had to get out of the way. So these Antari can travel between worlds, and one day Kell is in White London, the worst one, which is ruled by these 2 evil twins who... This was a reread for this video. I have read this one before, but I just couldn't help but picture the 2 twins as like an evil twisted version of Rough Nut and Tough Nut from the How to Train Your Dragon series. I don't know if that's because I don't know, they're the first twins that came to mind, and I was just imagining a darker version of those cartoon characters as the villains of this book. But yeah, the White London is ruled by these two evil twins that are horrible. They have another Antari called Holland, who is older than Kell and kind of like, he's very brooding, and they kind of have him under their control with like this soul bind. He has to do everything they say. And I felt so bad for Holland. Like in this book, he's kind of the villain, and he does kill Lila's friend, the guy that keeps the tavern, who, oh my god, I can't believe he died. Like, it's kind of like V.E.Schwab introduced these characters and then just kills them. And it's like, I just sort of like these characters, because the other V.E.Schwab books, she always has these lovely characters and they always end up dying. But yeah, I think his name was Bard. I can't remember, to be honest with you. He was only there for a bit, and I really liked him. He was sweet, and then he died because of Holland. But I'm kind of forgiving Holland because he was under control by the twins. But I'm still mad at him. But I do feel bad for him. He's under the soul ban. Anyway, so Kell is in his White London, and on his way back to go to Red London, his home, he's kind of like the ward of the king of Red London, and he kind of delivers messages between the rulers of the Londons. This woman is like, hey, do you mind taking this letter across? Like, I've got a dying family member in the other world. Can you take this letter? And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll take you parceling your letter. And then he gets ambushed when he gets back home, and he finds out he has this stone, which is like is like magic personified into a stone, and it literally is called magic, which is a bit like, I don't get why that detail was on there. It's just like, oh, this stone is called magic, and it's like, okay. But this stone is from Black London, and it should not exist. It should not exist in any of these Londons. All traces of Black London was supposed to be destroyed. But he has this black stone, and people are after him, and we eventually learn that it's Holland and the twins that are after him, because the twins have the other half of the stone, and they want to put it together and take over all the other worlds, I guess. A very basic kind of motivation for the villains is just to take over the worlds, I guess. There's no really depth there, but I do think it worked for the characters, because they were just pure evil. They were from this society and this world that was corrupted, obviously, by Black London was kind of leeching the magic off of them. So it kind of makes sense, but it was kind of like I wanted a bit more intricacy from the villains from a fantasy series that I hear people rave about all the time, and it's just like, they want to take over the world. Okay. But yeah, they send Holland, and we kind of see Holland and his kind of goons and people just after this stone. Kell is just trying to get this stone back to Black London, but the only way to do that is if someone goes with it, and obviously he doesn't want to go with it. So he's just trying to figure out what's happening and try and get to a point where he can send it back to Black London. But that's when he runs into Lila Bard, who picks his pocket and steals the stone, and that's where the misadventure happens, and they kind of get introduced to each other. And Lila steals the stone, and Kelly's like, hey, give me my stone back. And we kind of see them argue about it together, and they kind of form this bond where she's like, well, I've got nothing better to do in Grey London, which is where she's from, and she's really bored because there's no magic there, and she gets introduced to this world of Red London, and she's like, hell yeah, I'm staying here. I want to be a pirate. And by the end of the book, she does go off to be a pirate, so hopefully we'll get some pirate hijinks in the next book. I'm kind of hopping back and forth, but at the end, she's kind of like, oh, I see a ship I like, and I'm like, how are you going to man this entire ship by yourself? Like, is she gonna steal a crew? Is she gonna like hide on it? But it was kind of written like she was just gonna take it, and I was like, okay, have fun trying to man a ship by yourself when you've never been on one before. But yeah, they're on there. I'm just leaning there. Oh look, there's the box from the previous video that I filmed. But yeah, they're trying to get this stone back, and it's kind of like this kind of like frenemies almost, a relationship between the two. They don't like each other, but they like each other. I don't think it's romantically just yet. It probably will turn romantically in the next books, but I didn't really see that kind of chemistry between them. It was more of like a bouncing off each other friendship almost for me. And yeah, we just kind of see them go from the worlds to worlds trying to get this stone back, and they end up in Red London at one point with this big party for Rye, who is Kell's brother, and he is having his birthday month, obviously. His birthday month. Or was it birthday week? I have really bad memory, Jesus. But yeah, he's having this birthday celebrations and this big party, and then we find out that the twins have sent Holland, and Holland gave Rye an enchanted necklace, and then he put it on, and then the Astrid, the twin, mind controls him, and now she's using Rye against Kell to be like, give me the stone or I'm gonna kill your brother. And she kills Rye. She plunges her dagger into Rye's heart, and I was not expecting it because Rye was just kind of this side character, and I was like, oh, he's probably going to be introduced more in the next book. And then she's like, dead. But we do save Rye, thankfully. They escape from Astrid and Holland in the capital. I wonder if that's going to play a part because she does take over the king of Red London. Is he going to retaliate or something like in the next books and be like, I don't want any part of this travelling world rubbish. He's like, White London, we must go to war with them. They mind control me, my wife, and try to kill my son. But yeah, Kell manages to get Rye to this this school of magic. I will say things in this book kind of just get introduced when they need to be introduced. It doesn't feel like they existed before they were written in. Like we're introduced to this like place where Kell learned magic, and it's like only just coming up now that we need somewhere to go. So that was kind of annoyed me, and there was the later point where they have to get a piece of White London to be able to travel to White London, and there's just suddenly this shop with this guy Kell has a relationship with. It's just kind of like a barter. They bet against Jesus and play games, and it just kind of gets introduced when it's needed, and that kind of made it feel a bit rushed, the world building a bit rushed, because it was like, oh, this is happening, oh wait, it's gone now, we don't need it anymore. That kind of felt very much a big issue I had with this book. But yeah, they get to this sanctuary place where Kell learns magic. Kell bonds his life with Rye, and now they share a life force. And I guess Rye is kind of a zombie now, but yeah, with Rye, in regards to Rye, I really hope we see more from him in the later two books, because he felt very much like a side character, and it feels like he should be a main character if he's Kell's brother. And I just want to see a bit more from him because he has a really nice energy. He's like very flamboyant, and yeah, I just want to see more from him. Hopefully he'll show up more, and I want to see more from this bond that Kell now has with him, where they share a life force. And if Kell dies, Rye dies. I want to see more of that and that kind of psychology behind that explored. But yeah, after they save Rye, they go to White London and they kill the twins. They have this big battle and it's very fun. And Lila proves her worth, and she's like, hey Kell, listen, stop treating me like a stupid pickpocket. I'm amazing and I need to be recognised for this. And he finally accepts her help, and they just get along. They get along at the end, and it's very nice to see that. And Lila helps to kill the twins with him, and they get the 2 magic stones, and Holland, the final boss, comes, and they have to fight Holland, and then they send poor Holland. I just feel so bad for Holland. I don't know why. But they send Holland, and it's like, oh, Antari are really hard to kill. So Holland is still alive, but they just send him to Black London with the stones. They're like, well, he's gonna die anyway, probably, but he might live, but let's just send him to Black London. And it's like, he just got free from the twins' mind control, because the twins are dead now, so they can't control him. So he's obviously free, and they don't even give him a chance. They're just like, yeah, send him back to London. Off he goes. Off he goes. And that's kind of the end of the book. We see Lila go off onto the pirate ship, and hopefully we'll get some pirate hijinks from her. And then Kell goes back, obviously, to Red London. He's gonna be in trouble. He's gonna be in trouble. Because this all originated because he was being a smuggler, which is against the law to smuggle things between the Londons, but he did it anyway. So this is all Kell's fault. So yeah, that's not gonna go well. But yeah, that is the first book in the trilogy. I really, really did enjoy this book. It was so much fun, and my favourite in the series so far, which I can say because it's the only one I've read. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this book. I do want to see a bit more development in the later books, with things not just popping up when they're needed, and to be more established from the start. Maybe say this is a thing, and then later we go there, that kind of thing, rather than just going, where should I send these characters? Oh, there's this I can't say the word. There's this place where they learn magic. Let's go there now. So I want to be a bit more established. And I have seen these later books are a lot thicker, especially this third one. So hopefully that is the case, and we'll see a bit more development of this world, because this world is so rich. We can see so much from here. And I really hope we get to explore a bit more with Lila now on the open seas. Maybe we'll see some of the other continents and kind of how they relate to her, because we were told that just because all these worlds have London in common, other than that, the whole worlds are just different. They just have London and similar. And also the Thames is like the source of magic. The Thames. The Thames is so grimy and dirty, like there's literally dead bodies in the Thames. And like, no, it's the most magical source in this world, which I just thought was funny. But yeah, that is the first book. I'll see you in the next book when I've read it. So yeah, you can laugh at my predictions. My predictions are Black London is not completely empty. I think there's still people in Black London, and they'll heal Holland and he'll become their king or something. And they'll invade White London, and White London will be destroyed, and something large on that scale go. And then maybe they have to like completely seal off the worlds. I don't know. But I just don't think Black London is as empty as everyone says it is, because we can't just ditch Holland. Holland, the poor boy, just escaped, and they're like, send him to hell. Yeah, I'll see you in the next book, which is not that one, A Gathering of Shadows. I'll see you when I've read this one. So yeah, bye. So I'm back and I have read A Gathering of Shadows now, the second book in the series. So we start this book off with Lila's perspective. Now she's on the open waters and she's just a badass pirate now. She's so cool. I love Lila. But we see initially her POV to start off with, which is different from when we first saw Kell. So already we're in a different direction with this book, and we see Lila do this fake maneuver where she's like, oh, help me. And then these pirates come along, these other pirates, and they help her, and then she just like takes out their entire crew. And she takes control of all their stuff, and they just get robbed. And she's like, yeah, that's what you get. That's what you get. So Lila does that maneuver, and then we get introduced to her actual crew, who is manned by backwards Dracula, aka Alucard. And yeah, I really liked Alucard. He had such a good energy, and he has this relationship with the Rye, and it's kind of complicated, and I really like that. I really want to see more from Alucard and Rye though in the next book. I feel like it was very clear in this one, but I need more. I need more of that in the next book. I love. But yeah, we get introduced to Alucard, who is the captain, and him and Lila kind of have this bond where it's like they're friends but they're not, but they're friends. They kind of have a little banter between them, and yeah, I really like that. I love the introduction. We get a flashback straight after of kind of how Lila ran into these people, and she was in this place and she kills this dude, and then Alucard and the gang are like, you just killed our best thief, we're gonna have to kill you now. And Lila's like, no, I'm your best thief. And then she kind of joins them, and I really like that introduction. It was so cool. But yeah, later on, also in regards to Lila and Alucard's relationship, we also see a scene where Alucard, he keeps pressing Lila for answers, because obviously Lila is in this new world. She's from Grey London, but now she's in the Red London world. And obviously their main language is different, and obviously Lila doesn't know it, so we kind of see this, she's trying to figure out how to speak the language without giving away that she doesn't know it. And yeah, I really like that kind of dynamic of being a fish out of water. She doesn't know what anyone's saying, but she's doing her best to figure out what is happening and what they're saying, while sticking up for herself and finding her place in this world. But yeah, Alucard is trying to prod Lila constantly throughout this novel to try and figure out where she's from, what is her past, who is she. And I really like that, and I really like the moment where he kind of finally gets an answer from her that she's not from Red London. And obviously it's implied, well, she's not from Red London, she must be from Grey London. Or one of the other Londons. I guess she could have been from White London. But yeah, I really want to see more of Lila's like past being revealed, in terms of I want to see people react to her not being from Red London, because we are told like these borders between the Londons have been closed for so long, and there's nobody that goes between them apart from the Antari, like Kell and Holland, who are the only ones we know of. And it's implied that Lila is one as well, but it's not confirmed yet. I want to see more reaction from people finding out Lila is not originally from Red London. It's not a big deal. I'd just really like to see that dynamic of being like, how is this person now in this new world? Is it possible for us to go? Is it possible to start opening the worlds up again and people can start moving between? Like, I really want to see those kind of questions being brought up, but I don't feel like they are, because they weren't in this book, and the last book is left on a big cliffhanger. But anyway, moving on from Lila and Alucard are on their way back to London for this new tournament called the Essentage, which I do know about because I have read the graphic novels for these books. Weirdly enough, I have read them. They're about the Red King's past when he was like the Steel Prince. I do know about the Essentage from those ones, but in this one, that is the main driving point, bringing our main characters together, and it is what made me feel like this book was very much not as structured as the first one. With the first one, we got what was happening. We got to get the stone back. Then we get a bit of action with Lila stealing the stone and get the characters get introduced, and then we have to get it back. Whereas this one, it's like, okay, the characters are apart, we're learning where they are, Esh and Tosh, they're back together, end. And it's like, okay, there wasn't much structure or overall story to this one. It was very much just getting the characters back together. And the Essentage, I wish it would have been sooner in the book, and should have been longer, because it went by very quickly, it felt like. So that should have been the main point of the plot, but it wasn't. It should have been like the middle. It got our characters back together anyway. But moving on from Lila, we also see Holland is alive. So I was technically right in my prediction that Black London wasn't completely empty. We find out that there was this other manifestation of magic. Like the stone was kind of a manifestation of live magic. It was magic that had formed a will and intuition of its own. And we see another one of those, and it's like this actual guy now, a full-on guy, not just a stone. And he's kind of just sat on this throne, and when Holland is healed, he kind of like, hey Holland, I'm going to use you to get out of here now. So Holland and him end up entwined together, and poor Holland is just under control by someone else all the time. Can he just get a break? Like, he's in the first book, he's enslaved to the twins, and then he's almost dead and chucked into abandoned world by Kell. And then he gets to the abandoned world, is healed, and then enslaved to this other king again. Like, please give Holland a break. Like, come on, give him a break. But yeah, Holland and this new king character go back to White London. White London starts to revive itself. It starts to come alive again, and obviously with magic coming back into the world, things start to fix up, and it's actually quite nice to see. Because I feel like White London is very much overlooked. Like, no one cares about their suffering. So it's nice to see a bit more of life in there and people getting a bit more happiness and control, even if it is under a terrible dictator who I did not like. I was like, Holland, don't you dare give him your body, because this manifestation is like, hey, I need a host buddy, especially in Antari, which there are 3 of, because Lila is one now. And he's like, if you can go get Kell, and Kell says, yeah, sure, take my body if you want it, then I will leave you alone, Holland. And Holland, for some reason, is like, yeah, sure. I'm sure Kell will just let you take his body. So that's kind of the main point for Holland, is to get Kell to this king and be like, yo, give him your body so I don't have to. And by the end, Kell is captured, and that's the cliffhanger. But yeah, Holland, just give him a break, please. I don't really have much else to say for him. He has a new best friend that, yeah, she's there as well. And she's implied to be an Antari too. Did he create her? Did he make her an Antari, or was she just one that he found? I'm very confused, because it kind of felt like Antari were kind of difficult, and there was only a few of them, and then she just appears, and I'm like, okay, did you find this person, or did you make them? Like, did you give her the power? I may have missed something there, but I was like, where did she come from? Where'd she come from? Where'd you go? Where'd you come from? E-I-O. But yeah, then moving on to Kell, we have Kell's dynamic. I really was hoping for this when I was in the previous video. I can't remember if I said it in the previous part of this video, but Kell's bond with Rye, now that they share a life force, and they had kind of, Rye was a zombie basically. He's a zombie. He was brought back to life by Kell. And I was really hoping for a more introspection, like an investigation of how this makes him feel and how this affects his character. And we get that in this novel, which I was so happy about. And it went in a way which I'm very happy about, because normally with that kind of situation, you have the character who is brought back to life becomes very bitter and angry, and it's like, why'd you do that? And it becomes this kind of constant thing where the person that's brought back to life or healed by this person is always angry at them. But in this one, V.E.Schwab thankfully doesn't do that, and she actually has Rye feel bad for Kell, because Kell seems to have inherited this kind of dark side. We keep getting hints that there's something not quite right with Kell at the moment. He's kind of getting dark thoughts and dark motivations. It's kind of like a bit of that evil magic is still in him from the first book, which I'm very suspicious about, and maybe that will come back in the next book. But yeah, I love to see that Rye doesn't hold it against Kell that he brought back to life. Yes, he has his misgivings. He's like, oh, who am I? Am I really alive? And he has those kind of like mental breakdowns about who he is and how he should fit in this world now that he's basically a zombie and he should be dead, but he's not. And the effect that this has on Kell, he feels like every time Kell gets hurt, he feels it, and he feels responsible for that in a way. So that was very interesting, and I really enjoyed that kind of discussion of how these two characters now bond. And Rye actually feels for Kell, and he just wants Kell to be happy again. And the only way Kell gets happy is if he's in a fight, if he's enjoying his fight and using his magic and stuff like that. So he enters him into the Essentage, and we kind of get Kell in secret in the Essentage, we get Lila in secret in the Essentage, and then we have Alucard, who's not in secret, but he's just in there, and he ends up winning, which I didn't expect. I thought Lila was going to win, and it was going to be this big like ordeal, but no, Alucard won, and it was kind of brushed aside. And it was like, yeah, Alucard won, by the way. But yeah, that was cool. I liked all the secrecy, but yeah, I just wish it was more. Anyway, so I actually forgot to mention, so we get a bit of more of Grey London. We didn't really move around as much in this book. We saw separate parts. So we saw White London with Holland, and then we saw Red London with Kell. And there wasn't much interaction between the worlds in this one as there was in the other one. In the other one, we're kind of bouncing between the worlds and trying to get things back and forth. In this one, we're very much in Red London, and then the sides we get Holland and White London. But we do get a bit of Grey London, and we get this kind of information of the old king is dead. He was kind of old and demented. He's demented. He had like dementia, and Kell is really hurt by this loss, but obviously he doesn't care that much because like who cares. But we see there's a new king in Grey London, and he's a bit of an asshole. And I really felt uncomfortable in the characters. I can't speak. I really felt uncomfortable in the chapter that we met him. I felt like he was going to try and trick Kell, and he was going to try and trap Kell in this city or enslave him or somehow do something to hurt Kell. I thought he wasn't going to let him go home, and I was so scared, and he made me so uncomfortable. And I really, like, I don't want to see more of him, but I also feel like he's going to play a big part in the third book. 100% he's going to play a bigger part, because he was so intimidating. I was like, but we also see the character from the first book that was trying to buy a magic kit off Kell, and Kell was just not having it. His name is Ned, and he's in this book, and he has a bigger role, so I actually remember his name. And oh my god, Ned is so cute. I love Ned. He just wants to be able to do magic, and he just can't because he's in Grey London and that. But we do get hints that maybe he has a bit of magic because he can kind of control like water and stuff. So there is a little bit there, and he says something to Kell. Kell is like, there is no magic in Grey London. There never will be. You cut off from it. And then Ned's like, what about if we're not cut off? We're just being limited or something along those lines. And I was like, is this a hint? Is this a hint, Mrs. V.E.Schwab? Is there gonna be magic in Grey London? Like, imagine in the next book, we get like this, maybe the barriers come down. I still think the barriers are gonna come down at some point. But the barriers come down, and then Grey London kind of gets reinvigorated like White London is right now. Because White London heals with the Magic Man. The Magic Man. So maybe Grey London will be more involved in the next book. I know the magic will seep back into them as well, and they'll become like a threat, or maybe they'll have to team up. But yeah, by the end of this book, we are left with the evil Magic Man, the Magic Man King. Kell doesn't let him in his body, so he's like, right, Holland, we made a deal, I'm taking your body now. He goes off, and Kell is kind of left imprisoned, and it's a giant cliffhanger. And we have to wait for the next book to find out what happens. So I will see you in the finale of this series. Yeah, but overall thoughts, I wish the Essentage was more developed. I wish this had more focused narrative. It felt very much like it was just bringing the characters back together. But they're my overall thoughts. So I'll see you in the final part of this trilogy for the final thoughts and the thoughts on that book. So yeah, bye! So I've now finished the third book in the trilogy called A Conjuring of Light. And yeah, this one kind of picks up where we left off in the previous book, with Kell getting trapped and the magic man, the evil king, taking over Holland's body and heading to Red London to wreak some havoc, and that he does. And we start off by seeing Lila. She's like, where the hell is Kell? Let's go get Kell. And she goes off to White London and rescues him, and they kill Holland's busy mate, the one that I was like, is she an Antari? Did he make her an Antari? They kill her. That comes up later. So they kill her, she's dead. Kell and Lila then head back to Red London, where the evil king is wreaking havoc. He is spreading his magical mist throughout the entire city, and he is kind of mind controlling all the citizens. Like, as soon as the kind of mist stuff touches them, they become enthralled with him and they come under his control, like his minions. And they go after other people and try and spread the gospel of this magic man from White London, first Black London. And they're like, let me in, that kind of voice in the back of the head. And the only way to stop it is to kind of put the blood of an Antari on people. So we kind of get this amazing scene of Kell showing his love for this city. It was one of my favourite scenes of Kell just rushing through the city, throwing his own blood on people to try and save them. And it's written in such a hopeless way. It's like, you can't cover everyone in the city in your blood. It's not going to work. You have to give up eventually. But it's just so hopeless, but also such a nice moment to show that Kell really does love his people in this world. And it was one of my favourite moments, probably one of the strongest points in this book. And we kind of also see Lila, who's begrudgingly helping. But eventually they do have to give it up because the magic man is just too strong and people are just so easily getting taken back. So they have to go back to the Red Palace, which is kind of warded off by the people that work at the Sanctuary. Now, this is where my problem with this book begins. Now, this book, I don't hate, I don't despise it. I just have many problems with it. It just felt, overall, my main point is it just felt very slow. It felt like we were doing the same thing over and over again for 600 pages. This is the chunkiest book in the trilogy, and I don't think it needed to be. We were constantly reiterating ourselves, doing things to try and defeat the king or stop the king or slow the king down constantly. And I was like, this could have been done a lot more efficiently. There were so many things that just didn't need to be included. There was like no real sense of dread because the king was just outside the castle for the entire time. Like, he never even tried to attack it until like near the end. And it's just like, oh, okay. He poses little threat then. There's a bit where they have to get Holland back and there's a scuffle there, but that's about it. We see the king is like insistent on getting Kell, but he is okay getting any Antari, like Lila, Holland or Kell. He just needs a body. And yeah, it's just a lot of that. And there's quite a few MacGuffins in this book. Not all of them like really powerful MacGuffins that we need to get. A lot of them are just like, why is this mentioned? What's the point in this? So we start off with like all these different tasks to do, and it feels like just this long to-do list to get through, to be able to get through this book. So we have the problem with the people, so they have to put all the people to sleep. So that's this long kind of thread throughout the novel, is like, we need to put everyone to sleep. So that gets worked on. Then we also have the Red King, the Steel Prince, doing his weird magic spell that eventually ends up in him dying. He just kind of pathetically goes out. It was so stupid. Constantly throughout this novel, we get people like, I'm going to go take on the magic man. Like, I can do it. I know everyone else has failed, but I can do it, surely. And it's just so annoying. Like, the Kell does it, the magic, the Red King does it, Rye does it, and it's just like, stop it. Stop doing the same exact thing multiple times. So the Red King dies trying to fight off the magic man, who we've already seen is basically invincible. He dies. Also the Queen dies, just because obviously we need Rye to be the king at the end of the novel. So the Queen dies, and that is also probably my second favourite part. We get kind of this assassination storyline where one of the other lands is kind of the kids of that land are like, hey, we're 7th in line, let's just kill off the king and try and take over their land and like get to the throne quicker. So they try and assassinate the king, and then at the same time trying to assassinate the queen. But with the queen is Rye, and Rye jumps in front of the assassin's blade. In this kind of heroic moment, the queen's like, stay back, and she's ready to fight off the assassin. And Rye is like, no, I'm basically invincible. No one can kill me. I'm a zombie. Like, no one can hurt me unless Kell dies. So he jumps in front of the blade, and I was like, oh my god, this is so good. Then the blade goes straight through Rye into the queen, and it was actually really sad. That was my second point. Those 2 points I mentioned, that one and Kell running through the streets, best points of the book. No, hands down. I just love the atmosphere and the emotion behind those moments. But yeah, he tries to save his mum, but she just dies. Then also we get this like really out of pocket trip to this magical floating market where they have to get the main MacGuffin, which is this expulsolator extractor thing that sucks in the power to give it to someone else. And basically their plan is to suck the magic man into this and just keep him in there. So they had to go on this giant trip that's a bit more piratey, but not really piratey. It wasn't that interested. To get this expulsolator. And there's this magic market with this random lady that just knows Kell's past for some reason, just because that needed to be tied up. So it's like, yeah, this random lady knows Kell's past and she's just going to give it him. And then obviously he fulfills his arc of choosing his own family and destroying the past. And it just felt that could have been done so much better. Instead of this random lady knowing his entire past, we get some MacGuffins of the magic rings that bind the Antari so they can share their power. And then obviously we get the expulsolator. We get Lila. It's implied her old eye was somehow magical, which I guess might come up in the future books, but it's not really explained here. But she gives away her old eye because it's all shattered and broken, and she gets a new one. And yeah, a lot of MacGuffins. We get the rings, the expulsolator, we get the ward to put all the people to sleep, and it's just too many MacGuffins. Like, they weren't an excessive amount, but it just constantly felt like we were being told to go get stuff. Like, there's a point where Lila has to go get ingredients from the sanctuary and it kind of comes to nothing. But it comes to putting everyone to sleep. But it felt very slow and boring. And it just felt like people were constantly going out the castle just to come back again. Like, and also, we didn't even get anything to do with the walls between the worlds. Like, we're constantly told the walls are closed off. No one can come between them. And I thought that was an implication that maybe the walls were gonna come down, or maybe everyone in Red London was gonna have to be evacuated to Grey London, and that was gonna play a bigger part. But no, Grey London is just shoved aside. We get a few nods to Ned, who has this like magic spot growing in his pub floor, and it's like really scaring him. Doesn't really amount to anything. The king like dies there. The Great King dies there to this magic. Yeah, Grey London is very overlooked, and I'm really disappointed that we didn't get more of the kind of travel between worlds element, which this whole trilogy's premise is. We were constantly just stuck in Red London. But yeah, that's basically it. The Magic King doesn't even bother to attack the main Red Castle until the very end of the book, and he's like, you know what, I've been just chilling out for 500 pages, let's go attack the castle now, let's just go do what I was supposed to do at the start of this book, you know. And then he kind of later, he goes on to take over the body of the dead woman from the start, the Antari that just kind of showed up because she was needed, I guess, to be an extra Antari so that none of the main three had to die. They kill her, they trap him in the expulsolator, obviously. No one dies. Holland has his heroic moment where he stands up. I felt so bad for Holland because everyone just hated him in this book. And I'm like, the only person that deserves to hate Holland is Lila because he killed her friend. Everyone else, you knew he was mind controlled. And it just infuriated me that everyone was being so mean to Holland for no reason. But yeah, I felt really bad for Holland. I'm so glad he got a happy ending where he was like sent back to Y London out of choice and was like, no, I'm going to help them get better. That's how Holland saw him. But yeah, they get the expulsolator. Everyone's happy. Rye becomes the king, and he assigns Alucard as his personal bodyguard so that Kell can then go off with Lila. And their weird chemistry, I did not feel any like love story between them, but it's implied that they were in love, and I'm just like, I don't really feel it. They kissed a few times, I guess, but I don't really see it. They were more friends than lovers. I'm sorry. But Kell goes off with Lila at the end, but before they go off, they take the expulsolator to Ned in Grey London. Now, I have an issue with this because Lila has no idea who Ned is. She just knows that he's taken over her friend's bar. And Kell, other than Ned trying to buy things off Kell in the past occasionally, and kind of seen each other like, what, 3 times? He has a lot of trust in Ned. So basically he gives Ned this expulsolator locked in his chest and it's like, hey dude, look after this for us. And I'm like, why? You hardly know this man. Like, we know him because we've got his POV, but Kell has no reason to trust this guy that obviously has an interest in magic. Ned has done nothing but try and get his hands on magic and learn magic. Why are you giving him one of the most powerful magical items? And like, yeah, don't touch this. Just look after this magical item, boys. Why? Why this is so unsafe? Just lock it up in Red London's basement or secure it in loads of cement and chuck it in the bottom of the ocean. Like, why are we giving it Ned? Out of all the people, why is it given to Ned? Leave it with Alucard to look after it if you're that wanting to look after it, because at least Alucard can control magic. Or Rye, who is literally invincible. Just have them look after it. Why is this random man who can hardly lift a little bit of water given them its powerful item? Like, I know you probably just didn't want it in Red London, but I don't think Grey London is a better alternative. Why didn't you just send it back to Black London? Send it back to Black London. There's no one there. It's not going to get out. It's just really annoyed me that they gave it to Ned. It was such a weird ending for that. But yeah, Kell and Lila do that, and then they go off and they explore, and I assume they'll come back in Threads of Power, which is the new book coming out soon, which will continue this series, which I'm glad about, because there's so much in this world to tell that wasn't told in these books. Like, I feel like the main problem with this book is it just didn't supply much. Like, there was so many like big questions that we had from the previous two books that were kind of like thrown to the wayside here that were answered, but not in the best way. Like, it's so easy to write better ways of them coming out, like Kell's past and Lila's eye and all this kind of stuff, and the expulsulator being handled at the end. Obviously there was so many better options, but they just kind of felt like Schwab was like, let's just go for the quick option so I can write another 500 pages of them all sat mulling around the Red London's castle thinking about what to do. It's just so infuriating. It's kind of like Warstorm for Red Queen. I'm just so infuriated by that book. And this one gave me the same feelings of like, this could have been so good. This could have been the ultimate finale. And it just didn't feel that much. Like, we haven't even defeated the king technically. He's just in a box for now. I'm sure he'll come out in Threads of Power. So it's like not even an ending there. And like, it's not even like they put him back to Black London and that's that. It's like, no, he's still an active part on this chessboard. He could easily come back, and he probably will be the villain of Threads of Power, probably. There was just so much that could have been changed or reworked, and it felt like this was like maybe the third draft of the book, and no one like cut it down or said, no, let's not have it that way. Definitely my least favourite of the trilogy. Now let's quickly end this video. So overall, I was a bit let down by this one, but I did enjoy the series overall. I would recommend reading it. I don't know why I'm recommending it at the end of the video, since you probably have read them all now or have just been spoiled for the entire trilogy. But if you haven't and you do have an interest in this series, I do recommend checking them out. Just they're a bit fun. They don't have the best ending, obviously, I've just ranted about, but they're okay. So I would probably put this one third. And then it's just going to go in order. I would rank the second book second. I really enjoyed the pirating of that book. And then obviously I've ranked the first book, which I have read twice now, and I would happily read it more times because this one is just so much fun. And I wish that the world hopping in this book had continued, because in this one, Red London literally the entire time, a bit of White London. This one, Red London the entire time, and a tiny bit of White London, and a tiny bit of Grey London. Like, why was this? The main premise of this series is there's 4 interconnected Londons that share like a place within the universe, even though they're all different worlds. It wasn't utilised at all, really, and it just felt very underused, and there's so much of this world to explore. I really hope Threads of Power does that and we explore more and some more implications. We didn't get any answers or reactions to anyone being like, hey, Lila's from a completely different world and she's just here now. Like, we didn't really get any reactions to that. And the mask lady from the first book died as well, just as a small thing. There was a few side deaths that I haven't mentioned because I just didn't care, and I didn't really remember or care about the characters that died. There was like Kell's guard, there was Lila's friend from the ship, there was obviously the mask lady who I was actually sad about. There was no substantial deaths in this book. But yeah, this series ended. Rye is now on the throne with Alucard. I know he's coming back into Threads of Power because it's on the back of that description, which I accidentally spoiled myself with. His parents are dead, he's now an orphan, and he's also invincible. We have Lila and Kell are off to explore the world now that Kell can have his newfound freedom, and Holland is off in White London trying to fix his thing. I really hope they don't bring him back because I like that ending for him. Please don't ruin that. But yeah, that was the Throne of Glass. That's not the Throne of Glass trilogy. That was the Dark Shade of Magic trilogy. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. So definitely recommend it. I'll see you in the next episode of this trilogy tournament. I've not quite picked a name for this. I need to brainstorm a bit more, but I'll put a placeholder in the title. But yeah, the tournament of the trilogies, the trilogy tryout. the triathlon of trilogies. I don't know what this series is called yet. I'll see you in the next episode when I'll be reading another trilogy. I hope you stick around for that, and all my other videos. So I'll see you there. Bye!